Hey YouTube! And today we're talking about Lgbtq plus. With so many labels and identities in LGBTQ plus, it can get so confusing, man. I looked at this photo and I went on YouTube and found videos of people that identified as each of these things. My mind was blown because I have been guilty, just as you have, of thinking, oh my god, there's just too many labels, like, surely they're just making them up now. Wrong. Never think that. A label is something that you put on a tin to tell everybody else what's inside. That is not what we need to do as humans. We don't need to label ourselves for other people to understand us. Identity is a feeling of who you are. And everybody needs to feel that to live their authentic life. If you're going through life feeling like something just isn't right, then you're not going to thrive and live your best life. So it's super important. In this video, I will read the definition of each of the sexualities, and then we will look at a clip of somebody who identifies as that. Gender fluid. Gender fluid is a gender identity best described as a dynamic mix between boy and girl. A person who is gender fluid may always feel like a mix of the two traditional genders, but may feel more boy some days and more girl other days. Being gender fluid has nothing to do with your genitalia or your sexual orientation.
You also did this great video that really kind of tackled, breaking free of gender expectations, and it got such a great response online. How do you kind of describe gender fluidity to people?
I think it's different for everybody. So I think it would be kind of hard for me to say, like, this is how I describe it as
Right.
beginning, middle, end. But for me, it's depicted very well in the short film that I produced, because for me it was that I was born looking one way. Then I ended up having long blonde hair and blue eyes, and when I went to school, I was very much a tomboy, and then I got picked on, so I kind of reversed back into trying to be what I thought everyone wanted me to be. So I had long blonde hair, and I would wear sort of dresses and heels and try to do that whole thing, and it just didn't feel right. I mean, it looked fine. No one sort of thought it was weird, but it just didn't feel right for me. And as I got a little bit more mature and started to really embrace these other feelings that I was having, which was that I just wanted to play football, and I just wanted to hang out with the boys, and I just wanted to cut my hair and play with Ninja Turtles and not Barbies. I found my self-confidence, and I found this solace in really embracing who I think that I was more meant to be, which is sort of not a guy. I haven't transitioned, and that's not something that I'm going to do, but I definitely am somewhere on the scale in between, and I'm constantly back. Like today I'm wearing a dress.
Exactly, and you do have heels
on. I have heels on.
But that's really what the heart of it is. It's really being able to be your authentic self outside of those societal expectations about gender, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Gay. A person who is exclusively emotionally, sexually, romantically and aesthetically attracted to the same sex.
So the hardest person for me to come out to was myself, and that took me 4 years in and of itself, just to tell myself that and be like, yep, it's 100%, it's not changing. I remember clearly I had this day and I looked myself in the mirror and I was crying, and I was like, I'm gay. And then honestly from that point forward, things changed a lot. They got better. I mean, they got harder because then I had to deal with the reality that I was going to have to tell people other than myself, which telling myself was hard enough. So that was a life-changing moment for me, and if you guys haven't done that and you maybe want to do that, I recommend it.
Pansexual. One who can love sexualities in many forms, like bisexuality, but even more fluid. A pansexual person can love not only the traditional male and female genders, but also transgendered, androgynous and gender fluid people.
In all seriousness, pansexuality just means that you experience attraction regardless of gender or sex. Pansexuality is sometimes described as being gender blind. You're a woman? Nice. You're a man? Great. Penises? Bring it out. Non-binary? Sweet. Boobs? Those are awesome. Can we cuddle now? Gender identity, gender expression, penises, vaginas, anything in between. It's not really a factor in my experience of attraction to people. I'm still concerned with someone's values, what kind of person they are, what they're doing with their life, how sexy sexy I find them. It's just that their genitals and gender identity and gender expression have nothing to do with those things for me.
Asexual. Experiencing little or no sexual attraction to others and or a lack of interest in sexual relationships and behaviour.
The first and main definition of asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction. There is unfortunately a lot more complicated stuff within that, but that is the broad umbrella term of asexuality. To go more specifically into attraction, we have 3 separate types of attraction. The main 3 you need to worry about. Sexual attraction, which is you feel so attracted to somebody that you want to have sex with them, basically. It's really hard for me to explain that one because I don't think I've actually experienced it. The second one is aesthetic attraction, which I definitely experience all the time, and it's just being attracted to somebody's looks. My main aesthetic attraction with guys is really strong jawlines, so I love strong jawlines. They just look really great. But just because a guy has a strong jawline doesn't mean I'm sexually attracted to him, you know? And the third type of attraction is romantic attraction, and so that means you just you get those cute romantic feelings for somebody and you want to be in love with them, or maybe you are in love with them. I don't know. But those are the 3 types of attraction that we're talking about. Like I said, asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction. So that doesn't mean that we have a lack of romantic attraction or a lack of aesthetic attraction.
Bisexual. A person who is emotionally, physically, and sexually attracted to men and women. If you're bisexual, it doesn't have to be an exact split, 50-50. It can be 70% men, 30% women.
I think it's really hard for bisexuals because there is the illusion of choice. Because obviously, being in a gay relationship isn't as easy as being in a straight relationship. You don't have those heteronormative privileges. It's not about choice, because if you fall in love with someone and then someone took them away from you and said, well, it's okay, you could go out with someone else and it'll be easier, that doesn't matter. So there isn't a choice. Because I'm in love with Rose, even though I'm bisexual, I could be with a man or a woman, I want to only be with Rose. I strongly believe that you can't help who you fall in love with.
Transgender. Transgendered people have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from their assigned sex. Transgendered people are sometimes called transsexual if they desire medical assistance to transition from one sex to the other.
I think it's important when we have conversations with and about transgender people that we do not reduce us to body parts. We are more than the sum of our parts, and it's so deeply objectifying and dehumanizing to talk about trans people and reduce us to body parts. That is really disturbing, and we need to look at the evidence. We need to look at all the hundreds of localities all over the country that have public accommodations protections, and that's really what we're talking about for trans people. And everything that he's claiming happens actually doesn't happen. Instead, trans people feel as if they have a right to exist in society. My transition was about me existing in public space and thriving in society. And because I was able to do that, I've been able to thrive. That's all we want.
That's the last word. Thank you, Laverne Cox.
Demisexual. A demisexual is a person who does not experience sexual attraction unless they form a strong emotional bond with a person. It's more commonly seen in, but no means confined to, romantic relationships.
I am demisexual. Basically what demisexuality is someone who doesn't experience sexual attraction to anyone unless there's a bond that's formed. It literally means being between sexual and asexual. They could be the most attractive person I have ever laid eyes on, but if I just don't feel that bond, that connection, I just don't feel anything. Growing up as a teen, my friends or whoever would be talking about, oh, this celebrity is so hot and sexy and all this stuff, and it's hard for me to describe a stranger in that way. People would tell me that it was because I was innocent. Oh, she's so cute and she's so naive and all this bull. To those of you who are like me and have gotten that your entire lives, and you're frustrated with that, just know that you are so strong, and that being demisexual does not mean that you are this damsel in distress.
Non-binary. Non-binary people feel their gender identity cannot be defined within the margins of gender binary. Instead, they understand their gender in a way that goes beyond simply identifying as either man or woman.
We may have struggled to find the identity to understand who and what we are, but this isn't a fad.
Non-binary is like a term that people can use where I don't want to identify as male or female.
Don't identify with having a gender because I found it really restrictive. I don't think it's more trendy now. I think our existence is actually being recognised.
Yeah, we're actually being spoken about.
It's reaching people who are going to be confused, like I was, and they're going to be upset and not know what's going on, and they're going to see that word and hopefully it'll mean something to them.
So like you see someone and you can relate to it and you're like, oh yeah, lol, that's me.
Yeah. Polyamorous. Polyamory is the ability or capacity to love more than one person at the same time, with the knowledge of all partners involved. It has been described as consensual, ethical and responsible non-monogamy.
Why isn't one person enough? By that logic, you should only have to have one friend.
I have friends who I'm just Facebook friends with, and friends who I would pick up from jail. It's not that one person isn't enough, it's that lots of people fascinate me.
What's the difference between poly and cheating?
The difference between poly and cheating is that cheating is a violation of the relationship.
Polyamory is all about consensual discussion, being on the same page.
You make out with somebody else, that's part of the deal.
It's not about betrayal. It couldn't be any different. Everyone has a voice.
What's the biggest tool to help polyamory work?
Communication.
Being honest. You have to talk about what you think, how you feel.
Love and compassion comes first. Is non-monogamy normal? I think maybe the question really is monogamy normal? We can choose to be monogamous, just like we can choose to be vegetarian. But as Dr. Ryan says, that doesn't mean the bacon won't still smell good. It's okay to be non-monogamous as long as you do it in an ethical way that doesn't betray anyone.
Agender. A person with no or very little connection to the traditional system of gender. No personal alignment with the concepts of either man or woman.
I find it really refreshing and exciting when people do use the right pronouns and they do use the right name, and it makes me feel better as a person, because I know I used to struggle a lot with like gender identity. It's really, really heartwarming when people really honor that and call me by my name and my pronouns rather than my birth name or the pronouns they think I should have. Sometimes it can be hard being agender because so many people still don't understand the fact that it exists, which it does, and so many people have a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that, wow, you have no gender then? Of course you have a gender. Everyone has a gender, right? No, fun fact, not everyone has a gender, just like not everyone has a religion.
Polysexual. Polysexuality is attraction to some, but not all, possible genders. This is not to be confused with bisexuality, which is attraction to the two binary genders, or pansexuality, which is attraction regardless to gender. Someone who is polysexual may be attracted to any combination of possible genders, including both binary and non-binary.
Basically anyone who is not monosexual, which monosexual means exclusively attracted to one gender. So, for example, heterosexuality. If you are only attracted to people of the opposite sex, that is monosexual, because you are only attracted to one specific gender. If you are homosexual, then you are monosexual because you are only attracted to people of the same sex, so the same gender. So polysexual is basically anything, any kind of attraction that is not monosexual.
Intersex. Intersex people are born with any of several variations of sex characteristics, including chromosomes, gonads, sex hormones or genitals that, according to the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, do not fit the typical definitions for male or female bodies.
So what makes you intersex?
So for me particularly, I have XY chromosomes and internal testes. So I usually say it takes a lot of balls to talk about this stuff. And because internally I have testes and XY chromosomes, no uterus, no period, no ovaries, that sort of thing.
And just to clarify, women usually have XX, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Usually, typically, women have XX chromosomes, men have XY chromosomes. Originally, like right in the moment when I found out, it wasn't too hard. I think when I talk to people about this, kids are very open to all sorts of variations and differences if you just kind of tell it to them point blank and kind of tell them the facts. It's not a big deal. I think what later was hard and emotional for me is dealing with society's expectations of me and society's ideas of being a woman or sex and gender, and that's what really started to cause problems. So 2 years later, in my 7th grade year, I found out that boys have XY chromosomes, and I came home crying and yelling at my mom, like, "You never told me I was a boy," and like freaking out. And that was like, I feel like that was really a big defining moment for me.
Aromantic. An aromantic person is a person who experiences little or no attraction to others. Where romantic people have an emotional need to be with another person in a romantic relationship, aromantics are often satisfied with friendships or other non-romantic relationships.
Aromantics are often satisfied with friendships and other non-romantic relationships. So aromantics exist in the same kind of poetic space, you could say, as asexuality, in that it's the absence or lack of interest in certain aspects of a romantic relationship which most of society currently considers normal. So while somebody who associates as asexual experiences little to no sexual desire, an aromantic person experiences little to no romantic desire. It's important to consider that both of these things exist on a spectrum. So some aromantics are completely disgusted and completely uncomfortable with any form of romance. Some asexuals are completely disgusted and completely opposed to any form of sexual interaction, whereas others are okay with performing these actions or do feel a little bit of them. If you feel neither sexual attraction or romantic attraction, you might fall under the category of aro-ace. I started to come to terms with the fact that I was aromantic just because there was so much of it in the media that I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, that's how I feel. And it has been liberating. I no longer feel like I'm doing something wrong or that I just haven't found the right person. I'm no longer in pursuit of this feeling that I feel like I'm missing out on. I understand now that I just don't feel those type of sentiments and that I can be perfectly happy without them and I have no need to pursue them.
Genderqueer. Any position in a wide variety of gender identities spanning in the spectrum between male and female. A person who is genderqueer is not transgendered, though the option is open to transition. Being genderqueer has no bearing on sexual identity or orientation.
The term cross-dresser is very ill-defined. Basically, it refers to anyone who dresses as the opposite sex. They could do it for fun, for theater, or as a sexual fetish, but essentially, they do it as a form of gender expression that's separate from their own gender identity. Whereas, when I wear makeup or femme clothing, I feel like I'm expressing my own gender. These aren't women's clothes. I didn't steal them from a woman. They're mine, and they're part of my gender expression. So it's not accurate to call me a cross-dresser, because I'm not a man in women's clothes. So, what am I? I feel the term genderqueer best captures what I really am. In some languages, like Chinese, there are no gendered pronouns, so in those languages this wouldn't be an issue. But English traditionally forces people to use either male or female pronouns. A lot of non-binary people choose to use they as a gender-neutral pronoun, and in my experience this is especially true with agender people who don't like the experience of being gendered one way or another. Now, I'm more on the gender fluid or bi-gender side of non-binary, though I don't use any other term besides genderqueer because I just find these other terms are too specific. But I don't experience a lack of gender so much as an excess of it.
Scoliosexual. Primarily sexually, romantically or aesthetically attracted to genderqueer, transgender or non-binary people.
Now, scoliosexual is the inherent attraction to not males or females or anyone inside the gender binary, but specifically people outside of the gender binary, like non-binary people or agender people. So, people who are scoliosexual, normally this means that you're not going after a specific genitalia or whatever you were assigned with at birth. It's, specifically going for the term as a whole. So as a whole, the non-binary community, that's what they're going after.
Bigender. A bigender person is someone who experiences mental swings between genders. Their characteristics or mannerisms change from male to female depending on the situation.
The way I came up with it was like being bisexual, but with like gender identity rather than your sexuality. So I kind of came up with that because it kind of connects to that world.
Yes.
And when I sort of Googled it, I found out the term originates from 1995 when I was about 3 years old. And I found this brilliant website called bigender.net that is free to anyone to go on. And there's just a whole community of people just like me on there. And it's just amazing to find something like that.
In the morning, is that when you decide or you feel which gender you're going to be? Or do you know the night before, or does it happen, sort of a week at a time?
Sometimes it's the night before. Quite often it'll be sort of in the morning. I'll have breakfast first, or maybe I'll just go around the shops quickly to get something, or have a shower or something like that, and I kind of realise where I am. It's definitely sort of a feeling, not a decision.
Androsexual is anyone who has sexual feelings towards masculinity. Androsexual is usually used by genderqueer individuals, as heterosexual or homosexual don't necessarily apply to them, since their genders may not necessarily have opposites.
That would mean that I don't have a gender, so I cannot identify myself as gay or lesbian, because saying that I was gay or lesbian means that I am either a female attracted to a female, or I'm a man attracted to a man. And since I don't have a gender, I can't say that I'm a gay or a lesbian. And that is why the words androsexual and gynosexual were invented. Androsexual means I am attracted to men. So if I were a gender nonconformist person, then I would say, hello, I am androsexual. Meaning that I am a gender nonconformist person who is attracted to men or masculinity, regardless of if they have male genitalia or not. Because not all men have a penis. Gynosexual means I am attracted to females or femininity. So that means that I am a gender nonconformist person who is attracted to females or femininity, regardless of if they have a vagina or not, because not all women have vaginas. And if you're attracted to both, then you can say I'm bisexual, or if you're attracted to all people, then you can say pansexual, because that has nothing to do with your gender identity as yourself. Or you can say scoliosexual if you're only attracted to those who are gender nonconformist or transgender.
Acoisexual. Someone who experiences sexual attraction but doesn't wish for it to be acted on or reciprocated.
I was attracted to them at first, really attracted to them, and had a huge crush on them and everything. And so eventually, either they asked me out or I asked them out, and we started dating, and it was cool. But then as soon as we started dating, I was just like, no, I'm good. I was like, what's wrong? Why do I, get these crushes and feel this way? But then as soon as they start reciprocating those feelings, it just stops. And no one had an answer. They were like, oh, maybe you just haven't found the right person. Oh, that wasn't really a relationship, blah, 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 blah. So when I found the description of what acoiromantic is on the list, I was just like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. It was like one of those that clicked. It just clicked. It was like one of those moments where I was just like, oh my god, that describes me exactly.
Autosexual. A person that has sex or masturbates with themselves and often prefers that more than with another person.
The technical term means you are sexually attracted to yourself. The Urban Dictionary says you prefer self-gratification over other forms of sexual activity. So basically, you prefer to masturbate over engaging in other intimate things like sex and oral sex and foreplay and all the things. So basically, you're just turned on by touching yourself and being with yourself, and you prefer that over being with some other person. That's what autosexual is.
Lesbian. A lesbian is a female who is exclusively, emotionally, sexually, romantically, or aesthetically attracted to other females. I used to really struggle with the word lesbian because I'd heard it in a derogatory term or to be used in bullying or something negative, and I knew that's something that I didn't want to be. But when I looked at the definition of what a lesbian was, it was a woman that falls in love with a woman. Well, hey, that is me. So I found when I accepted myself, I could accept the word lesbian. And now when I say that I'm a lesbian, it feels powerful. And it's who I am. And I'm never, ever, ever going to be ashamed of that. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned so much. I know that I did. If you like this video, subscribe. There's going to be so many more videos like this coming your way. Remember, to be a good human, all we need to do is understand, care and love. So let's do more of that. And cut!